Welcome to Unhinged Magi!
All right, we're back at it, aren't we?
We are back, and we are at it.
Yes, right. And I have my hat, and you know what that means.
CEO time,
I didn't comb my hair. Oh, yeah, that's true. But we're not doing CEO time. No.
Not this time.
No, because we're on Unhinged Magi right now. It's going to be fantastic.
So they probably already know what the subject is by the title.
Dang it, why do we keep putting a title up?
I know, we should just say video.
That's right.
And then you have to click on it.
Oh my gosh, we got to do that at least once.
That would either work or fail massively.
It would probably fail massively because it will not. People want to see what.
They'd be like, I'm not clicking your stupid video.
Yeah. What kind of title is that? All right.
So yes, we are indeed talking about interrupts in old school.
That's right, because if you're playing old school, you're probably not playing real old school.
Yeah, only real men play old school.
That's right. Or, yeah. If real men play old school, then old school should have interrupts.
I actually really miss the interrupts. That's when I first heard that old school was a format that people were playing, and my friends, and I think it was actually, there's two people that told me about it. It was Jason Murray and Hampton Maxwell. Reached out to me over the internet and said, you've got to see this. Because I used to play with both of those guys, actually, back in Chico, California, at the tournaments in the mall and stuff like that. So they introduced me to the format, and when I was looking at it, I was very surprised to find out that interrupts were still out.
Yep, and I found out that they got rid of interrupts when I started the channel, and people told me there are no more interrupts. And they kept telling me that, and I said, that's not true, because I have cards that say interrupt on it. It doesn't make any sense. How could they have no interrupts if there's interrupts? I have one literally in my hand. I have a rule book from Beta that says there's interrupts. I have a rule book from Alpha that says there's interrupts. So if you're playing old school and you're not playing with interrupts, you're just playing with old cards.
Now, I definitely think there's a point where the old school rules are okay changing over to something else. There are specific examples of where I think I'm actually okay with it and it's good. And there's other examples where the old schoolers decided to kind of go back to more original rules, and I'm glad that they did. An example of that would be mana burn, for instance. Like, there's no mana burn in New Magic, but in old school, in at least most of the formats, there is. And that actually changes a few cards, like Suchi and some others, quite a bit.
Oh, yeah.
Because that interaction was meant to be there.
There's a repercussion.
Yes, there is a repercussion for it. So in that case, I'm glad that they went back to an old rule set. But then there's other cards. Like a good example would be like Time Vault.
You mean real rule set?
Yeah, real rule set.
I refuse to accept any change like that.
So then there's another one where like a specific card errata, like Time Vault. And with Time Vault, like, it didn't have this whole thing where if you can just untap it, then you can tap it again to take another turn. There was, in fact, that one actually went through several versions of rules. And I think even at one point they had a thing called a time counter, where you tap it and you put a time counter on it, because they were trying to make sure it couldn't be abused.
Yeah.
And in the current form of old school, you effectively can, because you can just twiddle it to untap it and then tap it again to take a turn. In fact, there's whole entire decks built upon that. So I actually like that one to stay the way it is, because those decks, they're not broken. They're okay, right? The concern that everybody had didn't really seem to manifest itself.
Yeah, well, that's fine.
Yeah.
I still say the rules are the rules.
So that's the difference I was trying to make. There's general rules for the whole game, and there's individual specific card rulings.
Right, so if you're actually playing in any old school format that is run by an old school group, and they don't play with interrupts, and they don't believe that continuous artifacts stop when they are tapped, they're probably not really playing old school. That's my opinion.
Well, unfortunately, they all play like that, which is kind of the point of this video. Yeah. So I mean, I would like to see some of those rules revert back, because I think that would bring a whole different level of nostalgia back into the game,
like a real game of Magic.
and the reasons that I'm hearing why they don't have interrupts in there, and why they don't have artifacts turn off when they tap, the reasons I've heard, they just don't really hold water for me, but I've never really wanted to make a big stink about it, right?
But now's the day!
Today it changes! Ooh, yeah!
That's right.
Pull out some Macho Man Randy Savage
there. You did that really well, by the way.
Thank you. There's a couple specific cards that change massively when you actually add interrupts back in. And one of them is this guy right here.
That's right. Power Sync. Power Sync was ultimately huge. He was actually my favorite form of a counterspell, even before the 2 blue counterspell. This one forces you to tap your freaking lands when it's an interrupt speed, and you can't little pump up your stuff and say, hey, I've got a bunch of freaking mana, because this empties your pool. If you have it on the instant stack and say that Power Sync is a freaking instant, then it doesn't work the way it's supposed to. You can't lightning bolt me in the face with the mana that is not there anymore. Interrupt speed is actually very important to this card specifically. You're not going to go, hey, I cast Power Sync on your, I don't care, Merfolk. And then you go, well, I'm going to go ahead and use my next red mana and bolt you in the face. You can't respond. Interrupt is forced.
The interrupt stack has to resolve first before instants can be placed upon the stack.
And that was the purpose. That was the sole purpose for Power Sync.
So yeah, when Power Sync lost its nature as an interrupt and it became the same level as instant, then it opened up the field wide open. Now you can put a Power Sync on the stack, and then somebody can say, oh wait, I'm going to pump my factory, I'm going to disenchant this thing, and then I'm going to tap my Relic Barrier to tap down this other. They can put all these effects on the stack. And that's not how that was back in the day. In fact, it's more than that. It's that the balance of cards unto themselves was based on the fact that they were interrupts.
Exactly.
Like the laces, for instance. Now the laces are just garbage right now. But back then, the laces were a little different, because if you laced something, like let's say I wanted to take Death Grip. Say I had a Death Grip on the table. We should have got that as an example.
Yeah.
If I have it's an enchantment that you can like tap 2 blacks and you can counter a green spell. But okay, now say I have a Death Grip on the table and then you cast like a disenchant. I could sleight of mind that, or lace that Death Grip over to being anti-white instead of anti-green, and then I could counter your disenchant before you could actually do anything about that sleight of mind change, because it was an interrupt. You couldn't respond to it with a counterspell or with a disenchant at least. You only could with another interrupt. So some of the cards actually lost their versatility when the interrupts went away.
Yep, 100% true. So you're killing the game. No, I'm just kidding. You're not killing the game. Sorry. A little extreme there.
Another aspect to it is, if you look at when interrupts went away, it was in a set well after all the old school sets. If I remember right, I think it was 6th edition rules.
I wouldn't know.
That did away with it. Because I just remember I was really...
It was a shocker to me when I found out they were gone.
I just remember being really angry at 6th edition, and I think that was when they did it. But the point is, old school only really goes up to like, you can kind of say revised in 4th edition because of reprints.
Yeah.
But that's like 1994. 6th edition was well after. So all the sets in old school are all literally designed with interrupts for the purpose of interrupts actually existing. So I don't really think there's any reason why they can't exist.
Exactly. And if they can't exist or shouldn't exist, then they should be made to exist.
I think so.
Yeah.
Because that one's not an individual card rule. It kind of goes across the board.
Yeah. I mean, look at Fork. Fork, for instance. It's at interrupt speed, right? So I can fork your spell. It'll come into existence, right? But if it's not, then, it doesn't work as well as it would if I could fork immediately.
Now, fork is forking fast.
Yeah.
That's one of the whole benefits to the card.
Yeah.
Is it not only duplicates stuff, but it's an interrupt, which means it's very quick.
Very quick.
So when you remove that trait, that character trait, you definitely degrade the value of the card.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's one thing that I think they should definitely, that old schoolers should maybe consider adding back in. And of course, I'm not going to stop playing old school on. This is not the hill I'm going to die on. This is just, Unhinged Magi making a video on the internet talking what our opinion is. And my opinion is I want interrupts.
Interrupts should be back, and you should be able to tap your artifacts to turn them off.
Yeah, actually, I would be okay with that one too, because a lot of artifacts were designed with that.
But I noticed that they allow certain artifacts that were continuous to be turned off if they're tapped.
Oh, actually, that's because there's actually errata on those actual cards. Like if you look at like Howling Mine and Winter Orb, there's a couple of them specifically Like if you get a new version, it will actually say on the card it's
It says
turned off.
it, yes.
Yeah, when it's tapped.
But why doesn't it say it on the old ones?
Because all artifacts turned off when they tapped.
Right.
So like Black Vice
So you
by
know what
old
you need
rules
to
would
do?
actually turn off.
So-
But Black Vice by new rules doesn't.
So that basically the newer cards that have the errata or the actual information on the cards are incorrect. They are false cards as far as I'm concerned and shouldn't be used because they've added a feature to the card as opposed to adding anything else.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what's gained by not going back on the artifact rule. At the very least, I'd be curious to hear what the argument is on the other side. Not to revert, in the old school format, not to revert artifacts back to the original rule of a tapped artifact turns off.
Yeah, true. But, you know, whatever. I mean, as long as you're playing cards and you guys agree on the rules, then it's fine. You know.
Yeah, so there's no huge problem. Like, again, it's not like we're not going to stop playing or something like that. This is just our opinion.
This isn't a boycott one?
No.
No? Not a boycott video?
No, I'm not that angry.
Yeah, I'm not that angry either. But I try to pretend to be.
He's really pissed.
I am.
Let me tell you. This guy, as soon as the camera's off, he's like, damn it!
I'm exactly like that too, except I usually fall down after I throw my hat because then I trip on my hat. It's really bad.
Yeah, pure rage does things like that. Don't do it, kids.
That's right.
Stay in school.
Stay in school. No pure rage.
Okay, there we go. That was it. That was the opinion.
There you go. You got our opinion, whether you like it or not, or whether you
take
want
that
it.
opinion.
And if you watched the whole video, well, thanks.
Yeah,
I'm glad
nice.
you enjoyed it.
Good job stomaching it.
Well, if you didn't enjoy it, I do apologize in advance for that too.
But if you did like it, I'd love for you guys to hit that subscribe button. Just crush that subscribe
Actually,
button.
even if you hated it, I'd really like it if you subscribed and continued watching.
So thanks a lot, guys. You have a great day.
Hey, thank you guys.
Bye.